On this episode of Phinside The NFL, we're going to do it a little different this week for the game preview, as I am joined by former Dolphin beat writer and current ESPN Cleveland Brown beat writer Daniel Oyefusi, and we're going to talk about everything Dolphins and Browns for Week 7. So do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me.
Jaylen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown.
And he will score!
Field down the near side, man open, touchdown!
The run from Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's got it over the touchdown again.
Tagovailoa trying to go for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
Before we get into today's video, I do want to shout out the sponsor of today's video, and that, of course, would be Sleeper. Do you think you know football? Then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less on the predicted stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code FINSIDE, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And remember, currently operational in over 25 states. Go ahead and check out Sleeper today. So I am joined on this episode by Daniel Oyefusi. Thank you for taking some time out of your day, sir. It's a pleasure to be here again with you. I know you'd come on the channel when you're covering the Dolphins, but it's good to have you back, sir.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me. Good to talk to you.
All right. So our excuse for getting together and talking football is that the Browns and the Dolphins are playing this weekend in Cleveland. Both teams, I mean, it's not good for either way. Both teams are 1-5. Let me get your thoughts so far from the perspective of the Browns. They drafted Dillion, Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. One bright spot, it didn't start off as a bright spot, but it's turned into a massive bright spot. And someone who I'm very fearful of this week, Quinshon Judkins, has probably been the best rookie. Harold Fannin Jr. has been really good too, but I'd give it to Quinshon. How has this year been for the Cleveland Browns? And Carson Schwarzenegger could go in there, but I digress. How has this year been for you covering the Cleveland Browns, and what are you seeing so far from this 1-5 team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a really interesting start to the season so far because of the preseason expectations and really the messaging from the top with ownership. Coming into this season at the beginning of training camp, local media got a chance to talk to the owners, D and Jimmy Haslam, and Jimmy Haslam really spoke about like preaching patience with this regime and having a lot of support and trust in them, and essentially saying like, hey, we're going to give them time to turn this around, to rebuild the foundation of this team. They're playing 14 rookies right now. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL. Obviously, we got the 2 rookie quarterbacks in there now. So really all of the messaging preseason was that like this might be a team that doesn't win a ton of games, but they want to really infuse some youth and rebuild the foundation of this team. So to see them start 1-5 and kind of like the fan reaction, I completely understand it. It's been interesting though, because I think that like most people would have said like, hey, like especially with the gauntlet that they had to start the season, I think most people would say like, hey, they expected them to have about 1 or 2 wins at this point. But I think it's the manner in which they've lost some of these games. The defense really showing itself to be a playoff caliber defense, or a really good defense, at the worst. The way that they've been playing and just not getting any support from the offense. It's 11 straight games now, dating back to last season, that this offense hasn't scored 17 or hasn't scored more than 17 points. And kind of the ineptitude of the offense, coupled with now, trading Joe Flacco after you bench him, and the way that he's looked with the Bengals, it's just really added to a lot of frustration. Where I think a lot of people, a lot of fans would have said, like, yeah, like Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, and the GM Andrew Berry are safe for this season. But the way that this season has played out so far, it's led a lot of people to say, like, I'm not sure that that's the case, and I'm not sure that should be the case. So it's interesting because expectations were low, but now that you're really seeing the season play out, the frustration, from the outside, from fans to internally with guys like Myles Garrett is starting to kind of bubble up and percolate.
Listen, the parallels that were running through my mind as you're talking about an ownership practicing patience with this regime and what's going on in Miami right now. Because what's crazy is, like, we did the same thing, right? Infused a lot of talent. Kenneth Grant, like you guys have Mason Graham, is taking a lot of snaps. You know what I mean? There's a lot of expectations. Dante Trader, a guy who wasn't even drafted in the first 3 rounds, is seeing a lot of snaps at safety because guys like Ifeatu Melifonwu are just not playing that well, who were added in free agency. Then obviously I'm sure you've watched the tape, and I'm sure you've seen the PFF grades, and I'm sure you've heard the rumblings about how bad Jonas Savaianaya has been for us this year at left guard, which, man, Myles Garrett, it could be an absolute field day for that front against this Dolphins offensive line. Let me tell you that. But we too are finding ourselves in a position where the fan base and a lot of people in the media are questioning, what is it time for Greer and McDaniel to go to? So there's a lot of parallels going on, but it seems the expectations were much more different for you guys based on what you said. I mean, you talked about how it was expected this team could only win a few games, but look at how much, youth infusion we have in Miami. But the expectations have been, you better win a playoff game. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy to see a lot of parallels in how things are going, but the expectations being on opposite sides of the spectrum is kind of wild to me. Who's been the most impressive rookie for you? Because, I mean, I could have sat here and, I didn't even name Mason Graham, but Carson Schwarzenegger's been fantastic, I've thought. Quinshon Judkins looks like, he's going to have a career day against Miami. I've already, come to, if Rico Dowdle's going to have a career day against us, if Kamani Vadell's going to have a career day against us, Quinshon Judkins going to have a day. What have been your thoughts about the rookie class? Because we both teams have infused a lot of rookies into the starting lineups with high expectations, but we could sit here and it's a pretty valid argument that the Browns rookies, for the most part, have actually been more impressive, far more impressive, arguably, than what the Dolphins rookies have been so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been an impressive draft class, and this is, this past draft class was the first year, really since the Browns made the Deshaun Watson trade, that they had like a full capital of draft picks, and obviously that's their first round pick since making the Deshaun Watson trade, or made the trade for Watson. So yeah, I mean, they've had a ton of contributions. This was the expectation that this year and next year would really be the foundation of this team going forward. Obviously, like Quinshon Judkins being a running back, and the impact that he's made, really kind of starting to help the Browns offense form an identity. He's going to get a lot of praise and well deservedly. But Carson Schlesinger has really been impressive, and I think that one of the biggest compliment that you can give to him is that he has been holding the green dot since day one of training camp. This was a team that lost Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. We had that scary neck injury last year against the Ravens. He missed the rest of the season. He's out for this year. Jordan Hicks retired, the first week of training camp. So that room quickly became kind of a position of weakness, and it didn't have a lot of depth. And they took him with the first pick in the second round, and a lot of people were kind of surprised. Like, why wouldn't you take a wide receiver, an offensive tackle? And obviously, the Browns probably had an inkling about what was to come in the coming months. But they threw him right in there in the middle of the defense, and that's where he's been from day one. And I think the best thing I can say about him personally watching him is that he is so fundamentally sound. He's rarely ever in the wrong spot. He's such a smart player. He doesn't miss tackles. Their linebackers coach just recently talking about a play that I noticed as well, where against the Steelers, where they were trying to rub, like, to pick him with the rub route, and like he noticed that on third down. He played over instead of getting caught under, and he was able to make a tackle short of the line to gain at first. It's like little stuff like that just goes a long way. It's like when you put yourself, when you're always in position and you're not out of position and you're always in the right spot, that lends you to being able to make more of those splash plays. So he's been really, really impressive. But like a lot of other guys have too as well. Harold Fannin,
Yeah.
pretty much being a de facto starter. He's going to get a lot more playing time. He might play every single snap. With David Njoku being out this Sunday, obviously Mason Graham is coming along. He's been a really good run defender, and he's coming along as a pass rusher. Dylan Sampson stepped up in the first game of the season when Judkins was out. And then you got you got undrafted guys, that are like Aiden Huntington, who are stepping into roles. He's playing defensive line, but also playing special teams, and they're using him as like a jumbo fullback. So yeah, it's been a really good draft class, and obviously like the main focus, or a lot of the main attention has been on the rookie quarterbacks. And if for some reason one of those guys pops, then it becomes a real foundational draft class. So yeah, I mean, I think that going forward, that's really what people are going to be monitoring. What happens with Dillion Gabriel, and when Shedeur Sanders gets his shot, can he potentially show something? It's really been a fun class, and what's been a disappointing year so far.
Man, like that Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, you got a feeling, are going to be compared to each other for quite some time, because they were teammates and they were drafted like 8 spots between each other.
5-13, yeah.
Yeah, and Kenneth Grant, he took the sack lead last week, right? Between the two of them, I think. What does Mason Graham have, a half sack?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And Kenneth Grant got a full sack last week, so he's at a sack and a half. But I think Mason Graham has 7 run stops and Kenneth Grant has 5 run stops. So,
yeah.
But I mean, let's be honest too, right? Right now, Mason Graham's in a much better situation with that front 7 than what's going on in Miami right now. It's a disaster. I don't know if you've seen it, but man, the expectations for the front 7, Daniel, were to get on the level of the Cleveland Browns and be one of the best front 7s in the AFC, and it just has not lived up to expectations. Back to Judkins, as you can tell, I was super high on Judkins when he was coming out. I really liked him coming out. I thought he was the better of the two between him and Henderson coming out. I was really high. I think it was my running back 4 was Judkins, and Henderson was my running back 5. I'm really high on him. You think he's going to be a handful for that front 7 this week? Do you think do you see a game where he could put up, and I'm not even just joking, do you think he could have like a career day where he could have 125? I believe what's the most he's had right now in a game?
Yeah, I mean, but he got like a 100 against the Vikings, a little over that. So I mean, he's clipped.
Yeah.
That was the first time he eclipsed the century mark. And it feels like obviously he missed all of training camp with his legal situation, and as soon as they signed him, they pretty much threw him out there. And his role has just been expanding more, and especially after a game where he only got 12 touches, I think 12 carries, and there was a lot of criticisms about the game plan and how much they threw. You couple that with the struggles for the Dolphins defense stopping the run, and then the expected forecast, with the rain and the wind, it really lends itself to being like a big Quinshon Judkins game. And he has such great contact balance. He's great at shedding blockers and picking up yards after contact. It just makes it even a little bit tougher when you're kind of sloshing around potentially on that field in Cleveland. I definitely would expect him to be a focal point of the game plan. If he's not the focal point of the game plan, it's malpractice, honestly, given the matchup at hand.
I agree. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation heading into this game? Tua Tagovailoa, quite frankly, getting chastised for comments where, listen, should he have gone about it that way? I don't think so, but Ross isn't holding anyone accountable. Greer isn't holding anyone accountable. McDaniel isn't holding anyone accountable. The quarterback holds someone accountable, and it's the apocalypse. Jalen Phillips came out and agreed with him and what he said, and said, it's not Tua's fault. It's the players who aren't showing up. And then on the flip side, you got a young guy in Dillon Gabriel, both lefties, both from Hawaii. I believe they played each other once. Correct me if I'm wrong. In high
Yeah,
school,
yeah, in
and Dylan
college.
Gabriel
No, high
won.
school. In high school,
Yeah,
the game
and
was cut
Gabriel
short.
won.
Yeah, because of the power outage.
Right.
I think the game was cut short because of a power outage or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the quarterback matchup? Especially with the taking into factor this is going to be the first time you see Dylan Gabriel at the NFL level in poor weather potentially, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a really. I mean, it's like talk about a unique coincidence, and
Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's also like them not having like much relationships, like
Yeah, at
written sport
all.
guys that you would think just naturally, like given their proximity to each other and their similarities. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Dilling's been put in a really tough spot for a rookie quarterback. When they benched Joe Flacco, like Kevin Stefanski on multiple occasions said that like the issues on offense weren't just because of the quarterback. And I think that as Dylan has made his starts, and we've seen Joe do what done in Cincinnati, people are really starting to come around to the fact that like, hey, like it really wasn't just Joe's fault. But yeah, like when the infrastructure around the quarterback is so, like we all know the quarterback gets so much blame, and they probably get outsized praise and wins. But when everything around you is just really not up to par and kind of crumbling, it's really hard to evaluate the quarterback. So like you have an offensive line that their tackle situation might be one of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL. If
Yeah.
used 5 different offensive tackles, guys have been in and out because of injury. They're bottom 10 in pass protection metrics. It's tough to really get anything going there. And then even when he is throwing some nice passes, the Browns are second in drops, and Jerry Jeudy leads the NFL in drops. So it's like one thing after another. And Dylan
Mhm.
hasn't played particularly well on his own. His off-target rate has been one of the worst in the NFL in these 2 starts. But he's just put in a really tough spot. And I think that a lot of the stuff that was written about him, entering the draft, the scouting report, that not having the biggest arm, not being the most mobile, like you're starting to see that on the NFL level. So.
Mm.
I don't know if necessarily like the outlook for him was ever to be like the franchise guy, but the Browns taking him with a top 100 pick in the third round, they believe that he was ready to play sooner than later, which is why we saw him get all the first team reps that he got in training camp. That's why they made him the backup so quickly. That's why they felt comfortable benching Joe and putting him in there, because they thought that he was ready to play sooner than later. You're going to be judged that way when I don't think that being a franchise guy or being the lead guy on an offense was ever really like his ceiling. It's a tough spot, but he's in there now, and it's like, hey, now you're asked to produce, for better,
Mm.
for worse.
You think they take a quarterback if they get a top 5 pick?
I mean, the way the draft class is starting to look in terms of at the quarterback position, I would think so. I mean, unless one of these guys really, being Gabriel or Shador Sanders really like pops the second half of
Yeah.
the season, I don't
Yeah.
see a situation or scenario where they're not, really heavily looking at quarterback with that top pick.
Wouldn't it be crazy if it ends up being Dante Moore drafted that high to come in and replace Dylan Gabriel after being an
I
understudy in
honestly
Indy?
was thinking about that because I'm not much of a college guy, but like
Yeah.
just because of the nature of the Brown situation, I'm watching some of these quarterbacks a little bit more. I was watching Indiana, Oregon, and like I was reading up on him the past week, and I'm like, oh, okay, he backed up Dylan for a year when he sat out essentially. Like that'd be crazy. But
Yeah.
hey, things change really quickly in the NFL, and it's like, hey, if that's the best guy available, hey, like that, like they'll take him.
Yeah. This week, I mean, my eyes didn't deceive me. I looked at the injury report, and we've only got Elijah Campbell out, but everyone else is pretty much healthy. But you talked about that offensive line. Jack Conklin, he's been banged up, right? He did not practice all week, and he's limited today, right? He's
Yeah,
questionable. And
yeah, and he's working
Joku's
through
going to
the
be out
concussion
too,
protocol.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, does Jack Conklin play this weekend? And
Oh,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I hope we see KT Leviston, but I don't think we will.
yeah.
Do you expect him to be back in the offensive line to get their legs together? Like, is there any chance this is the game where the Dolphins front seven, with Phillips, Chop, Chubb, Sealer, etc., where they start getting some pressure and start creating some havoc?
Well, the thing about Conklin is that he's in the concussion protocol. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, but he was back Friday. Like he was limited. I'm not sure he was like. I'm sure he was not fully cleared for contact. So they just gotta kind of like work him through the protocol, and it's just kind of up to like if he's able to clear the protocol. I mean, hey, we've seen that a lot of times with Tua over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So I can't say there, but yeah, if he doesn't play, Then you're looking at KT Leviston being at right tackle, Cam Robinson playing again at left tackle, and again, like those two are both. I'll say Leviston because Cam Robinson just recently got here, made his first start. But Leviston, again, he's one of those tackles that has just really struggled. He's bottom 5, bottom 10 in the NFL in pass block win rate.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that this would probably be their 6th offensive line combination in as many weeks, if I recall correctly.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I was thinking, like if there's any week for the Browns offense to maybe get on track, like maybe it's this one, like with running the ball against the Dolphins defense. But I'm like, hey, if there's any game for the Dolphins defense to like really get back on track, you would think that it's against the league's lowest scoring offense. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would expect, even if Jack is in there, he hasn't played a ton this year. He's dealing with a lot of injuries as he has the past couple of years. Even if he is in there, he's not going to be 100%. And if you're a Dolphins fan, you probably do feel a little good about that confident about that matchup with Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Shot Robinson. You probably feel pretty good about that matchup, regardless.
Um, an interesting matchup between this team too is like you've got the number 3 third down offense that the Dolphins have, but you got the number 28 third down offense with the Browns.
Yeah.
Have the Browns been struggling to get themselves into a lot of third and manageable and a lot of third and shorts? Because the interesting thing about our stat, Daniel, is you'd be surprised how many third and longs we've actually been in and got ourselves out of.
Yeah, I think the thing for the Browns defense and like they've been a pretty good defense, and at times they've been like an elite defense, like we saw against the Packers in week 2. Or week 3, I should say. But the thing about them, especially in recent weeks, is that teams are just getting the ball out so quickly. They are using a ton of misdirection because they're such an aggressive defense. They're using a ton of misdirection to take advantage of that aggressiveness. And teams are, and Myles Garrett really spoke to this recently on Friday. Like teams don't mind getting the ball out quickly. And as long as they stay ahead of the sticks, like they don't mind taking chances. They don't mind just staying in, 2nd and 7 and getting to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, because those are manageable down in distances. Because like nobody's really scared of the Browns putting up a bunch of points. Like, and even if they do have to punt, like they know they're going to get the ball back pretty quickly and probably in good field position. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has just been like not being able to stay in manageable down in distances, not being able to get into the 3rd and 10s where you do have to drop back and stay in the pocket a little bit longer, and you have to let routes develop. So that's the thing. Like that's why this matchup is so interesting to me, because I think that in the evolution of the Dolphins offense has been the one that doesn't push the ball downfield nearly as much as they used to in years past. Like Tua always gets the ball out, quickly. His time to throw has always been, top of the league. But now, like the depth of target has really declined. So, I think the Dolphins have really adjusted to that style of play in recent years, and especially using Achane as a receiver. I don't think that they mind kind of nickel and diming their way down the field.
Yeah, yeah,
So if they stay ahead of the sticks or whatnot, like it becomes a lot tougher for Myles Garrett and those guys to kind of tee off.
yeah.
So that's what's really interesting to me. Like, and even with the weather, I don't think that it necessarily impacts the Dolphins as much as it may have been, the first year or two of the McDaniel era, because they're not pushing the ball downfield. They're getting the ball out in the flats and throwing a ton of screens and stuff like that.
The Browns have the number 7 pass defense, the number 3 rush defense. You talked about misdirection really causing a lot of issues for the Cleveland Browns. And that kind of has me licking my chops, obviously, because you know this offense and
Yeah, ton of motion, ton of
all
motion,
the motion and
misdirection.
stuff like that. Do you foresee this could be actually, we talked about Judkins potentially having a big game. Could this be, a game where Achane could have a big game in terms of all-purpose yards?
I mean, potentially, especially again, given the weather situation, he's going to get the ball. I mean, he always gets, a ton of touches now. Like it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting to see like that evolution where, he was kind of, the guy that spelled Raheem Mostert, and now he's like a real focal point of that offense as a runner and a receiver. So I expect him to get the ball out. I was asking, their linebackers coach, like who is like the linebacker that would maybe like match up best, or like do you feel most confident in the coverage ability? And it's like, hey, well, it really comes down to like everybody, because he said that the Dolphins are going to run their plays, but they're going to move their guys around. So like the matchup is going to be what it is. If a linebacker's matched up on them, if a cornerback is matched up on them, it's more so about like, being in the right spot and knowing when to pass something off or when to carry something and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think both of these running backs are going to get a lot of run. I think their jerseys are going to be really, really dirty after this game is done for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be a good one, and a lot of these battles, especially when teams are on an even playing field in certain areas, come down to better. I mean, who's gonna win the coaching matchup? Which coaching matchup do you like better? Do you like Stefanski, and his staff, or do you like what McDaniel's put together, in Miami right now?
Well, that's so funny because, like, obviously I covered the Dolphins for 3 seasons, and I was there for McDaniel's first 2 seasons, and now like being in Cleveland for what is now my second season covering the Browns, like you hear a lot of the same um
Mm.
criticisms and complaints from fans, which almost makes me think like, is there any fan base that is like truly happy with their head coach and their offensive coordinator or any
Yeah.
of their coordinators? I hear the same thing from both fan bases, like they don't make adjustments. They don't stick with the run enough. Like they're not putting guys in position to make plays. So like I'm not sure. I mean, I think that I've been able to watch a couple of Dolphins games this year. I mean, I remember watching the Bills game on Thursday night, and I thought that was like a great called game from McDaniel, albeit in a loss. And I think that at times, Stefanski, he's almost like outside of this past game against the Steelers, he's stuck with the run way more than I have thought that he should have. Like they'll be down by like 10 points, by 14 points, and he'll still be running on first down. And he'll take that 3 yards because he knows that it's keeping them ahead of the sticks. So I don't know. If push comes to shove, like I really, it's almost like a draw. It's almost like a draw for me. But I have still been impressed with the way McDaniel's been able to pivot. Like obviously, like Tua's turned the ball over a little bit too much and whatnot, and they're dealing with the loss of Tyreek. But like I've always been impressed with McDaniel's ability to like put together a game plan and to get his guys the ball in space and whatnot. And I think just the nature of like the personnel that they have, I think that almost kind of lean the Dolphins a little bit compared to the Browns.
Yeah. Um, with the Dolphins and the Browns this weekend, another interesting thing to me is you covered Tua Tagovailoa for quite some time too, for those 3 seasons. What are your thoughts on his comments that created such a ruckus across social media and mainstream media this week? Do you think they were kind of blown out of proportion? Do you think he was in the wrong and he should have kept that all to himself? I mean, because you also understand Tua talk, and you probably heard the comments, and you could tell right away that he kind of said it in passing. He didn't say it to make like a really focal point, and it
Yeah.
just snowballed into its own thing. What are your thoughts on that whole situation? Because I know you've seen there might not be a more polarizing starting quarterback in the NFL than Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, not until Shador gets in, there will not be a more
Yeah,
polarizing quarterback in the NFL.
yeah, it's for
But
real.
but yeah, I mean, it was interesting because like again, like I think I think that him apologizing was the right thing. I think that obviously, like you said, like you never want to draw more attention to your team, especially given their struggles. Like any issues, you want to keep that in house. Like you don't need to go to the media for that. But like when you really like take a step back, like it speaks to like some real deep underlying issues with the Dolphins that really like we've been starting to talk about for the past year or two now, like accountability,
Hmm.
leadership, people doing the things that they need to do to be successful. So it's like, yeah, you can be mad at Tua or whatever, but it's just like there's like that's like low hanging fruit right
Hmm.
now. Like it's like there are like real foundational issues that need to be addressed and handled for things to turn around. So like I understand like there's probably like a lot of frustration. I'm sure Tua is really frustrated because um, you know, he's used to, things for the most part being pretty well. Like when Tua's been in the lineup, the Dolphins have more or less been like a winning team. Like, I think he still has a winning record as as a starter. And
Yep.
when when he's in there, they're usually competitive and they usually win a game. So for them to be struggling the way that they are, and it's like nothing's going right. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of bubbling frustration, but it's just like that's just not the right way to go about it. To like call guys out and say, well, some guys aren't coming to meetings or whatnot. Like it's one of those things where it's just like, hey, like we don't need to know that. It's always like when you got family issues, like you keep it in house. Like you don't go out telling everybody your business. Like you work to correct it internally. But obviously like whenever a quarterback makes those types of comments, it's gonna get a lot of attention. It probably was overblown a little bit on Tua's end. Because I think that the real issue, the real problem was like, hey, like we have a lack of leadership and accountability. I think the real question should be like, why did Tua feel, the need or the desire to make those comments public? Like that the fact that he would even go public with that really speaks to some underlying issues.
Let me ask you this too, because you were here. The interesting thing too is you were here for Boyer and Flores. You were here for Fangio, right? Now you've seen what this defense has turned into, but there's a lot of players who are here that were here when you were. Are you shocked with how bad this defense has turned into? Because I mean, look at the team you cover, same division as the Baltimore Ravens, so you know a lot about Anthony Weaver. Are you
Yeah.
shocked this defense is this bad?
I mean, honestly, I'm not. I'm not
Really?
because I remember when like my last couple weeks on the beat was like free agency. The year before when they had lost Quinshon Judkins, and they lost Brandon Jones, and they parted ways with Xavier Howard, and there were some significant changes on that defense. And I think that I think I didn't follow them like real closely last year, but I thought that when they got healthy, I thought that Anthony Weaver did a pretty good job with that unit, all things considered. But then you look at this past offseason, and like there were no significant upgrades made to this defense. I mean, they obviously traded Ramsey away, and Kendall Fuller was released, and Jordan Poyer didn't play all that well last year, but
Calais
Javon,
Campbell.
Javon left, Calais left. Like they lost a lot of guys. Like that was like 2022 or 2023, my last year. Like that was a defense where entering the year we were like, this is going to be the best defense in the NFL. And I think that when healthy, they were a really, really good defense, and they lost pretty much all those guys. Like the only guys that really remained from that group are like Jaylen Phillips, Zach Sealer, and Bradley Chubb. Those are the only guys that remained. And they really just they didn't make significant, personnel upgrades during the offseason. So, like, I didn't enter this season. Like, I mean, honestly, I didn't see them as a playoff team entering this year. I didn't think that on defense they had done enough. And as a team-wide, as a whole, even when I was there, like, the thing was always, like, you got to get better in the trenches, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I just didn't think that they had done enough. And I don't think they had made, like, the philosophical changes to be able to combat the way that teams had adjusted to them over the years, when it came to defending their offense. So in regards to the defense, it really hasn't surprised me because like I went into the year saying like the personnel just isn't there. And obviously we saw the injuries that they had in training camp. Like I think that, given the personnel that's there, I mean, this is not much of a surprise, honestly.
I want to get your thoughts on this too, because it's wild season. So I want to ask you about the Dolphins and I want to ask you about the Browns. Are the Browns Are you expecting them to be sellers at the trade deadline? And who are some names you think could go?
I wouldn't say sellers. I know that they made 3 trades in season already. And I think all 3 of those trades were very unique circumstances. When they traded for Cam Robinson, that was an offensive tackle position that I've said again, it might be the worst situation in the league. They lost DeJuan Jones to an injury. Jack Conklin was out. They lost a lot of guys, so they needed just to get some like experienced guys in there. That's why they made that trade. Obviously, the Flacco trade is the big one, and that was like the big surprise. And Stefanski said himself that like that surprised everyone because they didn't expect the Bengals to reach out. But when you look at like where they were, they'd already benched Joe. They probably weren't going to turn back to him. I think the owner himself said we got to see these rookie quarterbacks. It's kind of one of those situations where like, hey, we're going to get a 5th-round pick for a guy that's not going to play for us again. And you kind of do him a solid. Like you let Joe, who's done right by the organization, who's been good to the organization, you let him start. And then like you had the situation that came up last week where they traded Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell. And that was a very, very unique situation. Like I was told that that came together like very quickly. And it was one of those situations where they kind of looked at it and it was kind of their ability to like win on the margins, financially and on the field. They saw Tyson Campbell is a very similar player, comparable player to Greg Newsome, who was on the final year of his contract. Campbell was on the first year of his extension, and it kind of worn out with this new regime. They thought that he was maybe a better fit for what they were doing in Cleveland. So you get like a comparable, maybe better player in their eyes, who is you're paying like pennies on the dollar the next couple of years because his signing bonus and everything has already been paid out. Those are all very unique situations. Now the Browns are always listening to guys. Like they're always listening on guys, and they'll always take a call and kind of hear something out. But I won't say like they're actively sellers right now. I mean, there's only so many guys that they can really even like trade off because they have so many rookies and first year guys and rookie contract guys on their roster right now. Obviously, you look at like maybe like a David Njoku, maybe, but like even then, I'm not sure if they do that because he's such a core part of like what they're doing right now on offense. I see a guy maybe like a Shelby Harris, who's a rotational defensive lineman, very cheap, final year of his contract, probably not going to be here a year from now. I see something like that, but I don't see them as like active sellers, so to speak, just because of the recent contract, recent deals that they made.
I mean, you were around the player, you were around the regime, so you know how they think about him. You must have laughed to yourself when you saw Giants fans trying to gaslight everyone into thinking that we're going to trade Jaylen Waddle to them, weren't you?
That was hilarious to me. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I think people just assume that like anytime a team is bad, like at the NFL, like once you get to the trade deadline, like they just like willing to trade everybody. Like it's not really how it works. Like it's like very unique situations. Like even if even with all the rumblings about a possible regime change in Miami, it's like you still want to keep some foundational players. Like you want to keep your foundational players. If you're talking about vets, guys who aren't in the team's plans anyway, a year from now, years from now, that's different. But like, I don't like what is gained by trading a number one receiver in Jaylen Waddle. You just like putting the next regime in a bad spot. And like really, it's more so for me. It's like what do Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel gain by trading any of those guys right now? Like they're more or less coaching, GMing for their jobs right now. Like I don't see it. It's not like they have like clear job security where they're going to be given the opportunity to rebuild the roster, and now like you can kind of have some lean years. Like I don't really see I don't really get the idea of this regime trading any of those foundational guys right now.
Yeah, they're not. Like I've been trying to tell fans, they're not trading Jaylen Waddle. They're not trading Achane. It would take a really, really significant offer for them to even listen, let alone consider. It's not happening, and especially with how valuable Waddle is on that contract that he has coming that hasn't even kicked in yet. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, it's silly season right now. You know how it is, right? Like it's I don't know. And man, these fans out here will argue it like it's the truth and like it's about to happen. Like they will it's not even an argument. But I do think there's some guys that are realistic that kind of fit the criteria you mentioned. Bradley Chubb, he's on a cheap restructured deal, right? You could probably draw some interest off him. Jalen Phillips, given his injury history and everything, I don't know if they're going to pay him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, those make sense. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what we've been doing with Jalen Wright in Miami, but we traded up for Jalen Wright last year. He's been a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something like that could turn into something, but I don't think it's good. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's absolutely silly to talk about Jaylen Waddle and Achane and all that kind of stuff right now. Final question for you. What's going to happen with Deshaun Watson when he comes back?
I mean, if he comes back, he's in the facility. I mean, we just saw him today. Just said what's up to him Friday after practice. I mean, so my colleague Adam Schefter, kind of dropped like a nugget during the Pat McAfee show a couple of days ago. I think like kind of got lost between the cracks until like I kind of brought it to light. But like he said that Deshaun he's a month away from being cleared for football activities. He's been posting a lot about his rehab. He's been working out at the team facility. He's moving around and throwing and stuff like that. But Schefter said he's still a month away from getting cleared for football practice. Now, the team said that they expect him to miss a significant portion of the season, and they haven't said anything further than that. But I was kind of like given like a inkling that he is maybe a little bit ahead of schedule compared to what they thought, coming off like a second re-tear of the Achilles and surgery. So if you just do the math on it, I mean, we're at week 6, right? Or week 7 right now. If you say he's got another month before he's clear, that takes you to maybe like week 11 or so, week 12. I would assume he needs at least a full ramp up period, the 21 days. That's another 3 weeks. You do start to get to the point where you, and again, there's people that I've talked to were like, it reaches a point where like, is it even worth bringing him back? Is it in the team's, best interest to bring him back, especially with the insurance money that you could potentially get from him sitting out the season? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I wouldn't rule it out, but when you hear that he's still a month away from being cleared, and you kind of look at the trajectory of this season, it's like, is that even worth it? Especially when there's so much focus and attention on seeing what these rookies got. But he's on the roster. He's in the meetings. He's training on his own. He's rehabbing on his own. And it looks like he's at least trying to get back on the field.
What's the when's the out in that contract after this year?
Well, they restructured the deal again. So off the top of my head, I think it's like 80. I think it's an 80 million cap hit next year. I mean, they still owe him $46 million next year in cash, but they restructured it so much that I think it's about an $80 million cap hit. And then after that, the contract voids. So like, I don't want to speculate on what they do, but like, I'm just looking at the cap of it all. It almost looks like he'll be here next year. I don't want to speculate, but I'm just saying, like, in my head, the way I look at the financials of it, it kind of looks to be that way, which,
shouldn't they have eaten it like Denver did with Russell, you think?
I mean, they were just too in deep because they had restructured it so much. They were just in it too deep. Like, it would have been completely prohibitive to building the roster out. Like, at that point, when it's fully guaranteed like that, like, it just would have been completely prohibitive. Like, I don't think they would have been able to do that.
I didn't think I'd see a worse contract than the one Hakeem Olajuwon got from the Toronto Raptors when he had no knees, and then here comes the Deshaun Watson contract just to say, "Hey, peekaboo, I got you." That is crazy. Like, do you know the number off the top of his head? How much real cash, not fake money, how much real cash he's gonna make off that contract when it's all said and done? Do you
I
have
mean,
any
it's
idea?
I believe it's 230. I mean, it was
It's
5
all the
year,
guaranteed. Oh my
5 year
God.
fully guaranteed $230 million, and he's seeing every penny, and he's gonna see every penny of it. So yeah,
You
I mean,
remember when Dolphin
$46 million in
fans
cash
wanted
this
him?
year.
You remember when Dolphin fans wanted to
I
trade for him on the
remember I remember
flyers?
like mentally preparing for it. Like I was, yeah, I remember that vividly. And it's funny how life works, but
Oh
yeah.
my God, that is just. Whew. So what's your expectation this weekend? Who do you think pulls this one out?
Yeah, I don't know. I've gone back and forth on it. Like any one of these teams could win, and I'd be like, yeah, sure, I could see that happening. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. I don't think that like either of these teams are good enough for that right now. And the weather, I think it's gonna make it a little bit closer. I'm gonna just say the Browns win. Like, they haven't scored more than 17 since like November, December. I don't think they're gonna do it again as bad as the Dolphins defense is, but I do think they're gonna win like 16-13. I think that the weather kind of plays into their hands a little bit more because like they have to run the ball now. I'm thinking like a 16-13 nasty type game. Like I don't know how they get to 16. I don't know how. But I think that they do. I think that they survive the Tank Bowl, the Bad Vibes Bowl, whatever you want to call it.
Hey man, it's gonna be a harder battle for the Dolphins this year because we don't have DTR on the other side. So, you know what I mean. So go ahead, Daniel. Tell everyone where they can find your work, where they can follow you on social media, and what you got going on, and where they can catch you on the boob tube on the TV.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, find my work at ESPN.com. You can follow me on social media at Daniel Oyefusi, Oyefusi.
Go give him a follow. Does great work. Man, appreciate you for taking some time out, man. It's crazy to see your growth from the Miami Herald to ESPN. Great stuff, man. Thank you for taking some time out to join me, man. I really do appreciate it.
Most definitely, man. Thanks for having me.
Always a good time. Guys, do me a favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Go follow Daniel on all social media platforms. And we'll be live for the game this weekend. We'll see you then. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day.